Good evening and welcome to the Weekly Voice presented by BNN, bringing you today's top 10 Canadian news stories on July 25, 2025. Let's get started. Prime Minister Mark Carney is making global headlines after condemning Israel's humanitarian aid restrictions in Gaza, calling them a violation of international law. In a forceful address, Carney urged that aid distribution be handed over to international organizations, stating that Canadian-funded supplies remain blocked while Gaza faces starvation. He backed calls for a ceasefire and reiterated Canada's support for a two-state solution. His remarks come amid international pressure, with France now recognizing Palestine and leaders like Macron and Starmer demanding emergency food relief. Israel and the US have fired back, accusing Hamas of sabotage and calling the Palestinian recognition reckless. Tensions are escalating, and Carney's comments mark Canada's most direct rebuke of Israel's actions to date. Indian authorities are investigating over $1 million in suspected hawala transactions tied to Simranpreet Panesar, the former Air Canada employee accused of orchestrating Canada's largest gold heist. Panesar allegedly received the funds after fleeing to India following the $20 million theft from Pearson Airport in April 2023. The Enforcement Directorate has seized ledgers and digital trails pointing to international money movements involving Canada, the US, the UK, and Singapore. A lookout circular has been issued, but Panesar's legal team argues no crime occurred on Indian soil. Canadian police continue to call him the top planner behind the gold theft. A Reddit post praising Indian immigrants in Canada for their work ethic has gone viral and sparked a storm of both admiration and backlash. The post applauded Indian Canadians for their presence in key sectors like retail and fast food, with one user saying they're keeping the economy running. Supporters echoed the sentiment, but critics argued it overlooks labor exploitation and wage suppression. Some likened the conditions of international students to migrant workers in the Gulf. The debate has reignited questions about immigration, fairness, and the sustainability of Canada's labor market model. New economic data shows Alberta, Quebec, and Saskatchewan are leading the country in household savings, while Ontario and BC fall far behind. Alberta's savings rate reached 8.8% in 2023 and is expected to rise above 10% in 2024 thanks to higher incomes and lower costs of living. By contrast, Ontario's rate sits at just 1.7%, and BC's is under 1%. Nova Scotia and New Brunswick are in the red, with residents drawing down savings due to age and housing costs. The report reveals a growing divide, showing that where you live in Canada greatly affects your financial future. Police in Punjab have exposed a fraudulent marriage scheme allegedly run by a mother-daughter pair promising Canadian residency to grooms in India. Harpreet, based in Surrey, BC, and her mother Sukhdarshan, in Ludhiana, reportedly scammed over $200,000 from multiple families by staging fake engagements. Victims were lured with promises of marriage and immigration, but were repeatedly ghosted after payments. The scam came to light after a WhatsApp voice note raised suspicions. Canadian officials say marriage fraud is a serious offence and could lead to removal orders. Local police in India continue to investigate and warn families against such international scams. Canada's steel industry is getting crushed. With over 1,000 job losses and a 30% drop in production, Canadian steelworkers are feeling the heat from Trump's escalating trade war. The US has doubled steel tariffs to 50%, and a new 35% tariff on other exports is set to kick in by August 1st. Canadian officials are scrambling, introducing new restrictions on Chinese steel, but the damage is mounting. Meanwhile, US steel production is booming, and Trump is touting it as a win for domestic manufacturing. As Canadian firms brace for more economic pain, Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc continues high-stakes negotiations in Washington, hoping to avoid a full-blown collapse in cross-border trade. A shocking series of attacks has rocked Bmpton's legal community. A local criminal defense lawyer was seriously injured after gunshots were fired at his firm. Just hours later, the same law office was targeted again, this time by suspected arson. Peel police believe the incidents are connected and are investigating whether the firm was deliberately targeted. So far, no suspects have been identified. The back-to-back violence has raised alarm among lawyers and residents, with calls for better protection and a deeper look into potential threats faced by legal professionals in the city. Peel Public Health has confirmed the presence of West Nile virus in mosquitoes near Airport and Derry Roads in Mississauga. While the risk to the public remains low, health officials are urging residents to take precautions, especially seniors and those with weakened immune systems. Use insect repellent, wear long sleeves, and eliminate standing water around your property to reduce breeding sites. This is the first confirmed case of West Nile virus in the region this summer, and with rising mosquito counts, the warning comes just in time. A prolonged housing downturn may stretch into 2026 if Canada's trade conflict with the US isn't resolved, warns Oxford Economics. Home prices have already dropped by 8 to 10% in major cities like Toronto and Vancouver, and new construction is slowing. Investors are backing out, and consumer confidence is tanking. The threat of tariffs on key materials like steel and copper is adding more pressure to the market. With interest rates already near their limit and few options for relief, economists predict a potential GDP contraction later this year if trade talks fail. US President Donald Trump says there is no deal with Canada and suggests Ottawa might have to just pay tariffs when the August 1st deadline hits. His comments came during a press conference where he emphasized that Canada isn't a priority in current trade talks. This contradicts Canadian officials, who expressed cautious optimism earlier this week. Trade Minister LeBlanc is expected to return to Washington for a last-ditch attempt at avoiding the tariffs, which would affect steel, copper, autos, and more. As US deals with Australia and the EU move forward, Canada risks being left behind in Trump's aggressive global trade strategy. That's all for today's top stories. Thank you for joining us on The Weekly Voice, presented by VNN. Stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll see you next time.